today we're making a Schwartwald cake, and I don't know if this is just the Swedish version or if it looks the same all over the world, but anyway, this dish clocks in at 541 calories per serving, 7 grams of proteins, 33 grams of carbs, and 43 grams of fat. And if you want to change the serving size, just go into the spreadsheet that's linked in the description. You can change the serving size to the amount you want, and the calories will be adjusted for you. So we're going to start off by roasting our hazelnuts, and we're going to use 150 grams of hazelnuts, and we're going to place them in an oven that's 200 degrees. We're going to be roasting them for 10 minutes, and after 5 minutes we're going to take them out and give them a shake, and then 5 minutes later they are roasted and nice, also very hot as you can see. So what I like to do is pour them into a kitchen towel, just close it up and rub everything together, because that means that we're going to get rid of the shell. And then we're going to lower the oven to 150 degrees. That temperature is what we're going to use to make our meringue later on. So just roll up the towel, rub everything together, and most of the shells will come off. You can just pick out the hazelnuts, and then we're going to run them through a blender. And we want to create a sort of fine powder from this. Once we have a grainy and sandy consistency, fairly roughly chopped, that's fine. And then we're going to start making our meringue. And to that we're going to use 3 egg whites, and we're just going to whisk that up. We're going to add 125 grams of powdered sugar once our egg whites are whisked, and then we're just going to add that slowly, whisk everything together. And once that's mixed, we are going to slowly fold in our hazelnuts. This is actually a fairly easy cake to make. It's both my father and my mother-in-law's favorite, so I make this quite often. And now just pour in your hazelnuts and fold that in. And then we're going to make 3 pieces of these. And then we're going to divide this into our cake base, basically, and we're going to divide it into 3 pieces. Here I'm using a plate. It's not a full-size dinner plate, it's a plate that's 21 centimeters. I'll look up the inch number for that. And then just make a circle. I'm using a normal pencil here. If you go all the way to the edge, you might get some pencil markings on your cake, but it's usually fine. And we don't need to be exact, we just need to get a basic shape. I just crunched the paper up a bit so that it wouldn't roll up. And as you can see, we don't need to go all the way to the edge. This is just to get them sort of similar. And then we are going to bake this at, as I said, 150 degrees for 20 minutes. And I'm going to do one first and then the remaining 2 at the same time. And we want to let that cool down a bit, and then we're eventually going to remove that. You can also use some cooking spray or even butter or anything if you like, to make them a bit easier to remove. But there's a way around that, so if you don't want to use it, that's fine, that's what I do. Then it's time for our chocolate. We're using 200 grams of chocolate, and we want to temper our chocolate, so we're going to do this bain-marie and get some water boiling, a bowl on top of that, and we're going to melt half of our chocolate, so we're melting 100 grams. And once that's melted, we're going to take this off the heat and then stir in the rest of our 100 grams. And that is, if we don't do this, we're not going to have our tempered chocolate, meaning that the chocolate is going to melt. When you touch it, it's not going to be as nice and shiny, and it won't snap when you break it. If you go 50-50, it will melt, but it will take some time. So you can also do like 60-40, and that's fine as well. And that means it goes a little bit faster. Then we're just gonna pencil out some of the chocolate on our cake bases. No need to be super accurate here. We're gonna cover all of those anyway. And then we're gonna use the rest of our chocolate. I just like to take a baking sheet, spread everything out, and once everything is spread out, to make our life easier later on, I like to take a knife and just make pre-cuts, so you show the chocolate where you want it to bake. So just basically run a knife through to make your life so much easier later on, and you will get the chocolate pieces that you want. Otherwise, when you snap it, it will break sort of where the chocolate wants and not where you want. So if we do this, we make sure that we get the chocolate pieces that we want. So, since I didn't use any cooking spray, butter or anything here, I like to use a spatula and slowly run it under. This can be quite annoying. You have to do it's a slow process, and you have to be careful not to break everything, but eventually everything will come loose, and then you can remove it. If you just use a little butter or baking spray, it will go much easier, but this is fine, it just takes some time. We're going to do that for all of them, and for the bottom one we're just going to place that on a cake mount. For our cream we're going to use 1 tablespoon of vanilla sugar, and then we're going to use 500 deciliters. No, we're going to use 5 deciliters of cream, or 500 grams. And then we're just going to whisk that, and we want to whisk it quite firm, since this is what we're going to use to hold up our cake, and we're also going to spritz that on the edges. So fairly rough, fairly hard whipped cream. What I like to do is use a spatula to see if you can make sort of peaks with it, and if you can't, and then it just collapses, then you know that you have to whisk it some more. So you can see, now you can sort of make a mountain out of some cream, and that means that it's whipped enough. Then into spritz bag it goes, and this is for the top. It's just easier to do now. We don't need to do that for the other layers. We're just going to cover them anyway. So use some cream for the top, and then for the other layers, and finally we're going to use cream to cover our sides as well, and then we're just going to cover our sides with chocolate, and that's basically it. So we want to leave some cream for our sides, and it's a good idea to remember to put the top on before you do this, otherwise you have to redo it. So all the layers and then cream on the side, it makes your life much easier. So if you forget, just fix everything the best as you can, and then we're going to use our chocolate that's in nice squares and just place that on the outside. And then the rest of the pieces I just like to break up and loosely place on the top. Anyway, this is how a Schwartwald cake look in Sweden. I don't know how it looks in other countries, but I really like it. As I said, it's my father's favorite. So I hope you try it, and if you do, I hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching.